Thank you for those kind words. Appreciate that very much. My name is Bob Marzano. I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado, the middle of the United States, on Tuesday night at 7:06 my time, and it's Wednesday morning for you at 11:06, I hope. First of all, background about myself. I've done nothing in my adult life except education. I started off as a teacher in 1968. At the high school level in New York City, taught at the university for a number of years. Most of my career has been spent in R&D, working for a number of R&D labs, and a few years back I started my own research firm called Marzano Research. What I want to present to you is a model of school reform. It's called high reliability schools. I know many of you are familiar with that term. Certainly there are many ways to approach this topic. I'll give you our way in a bit here. If you're interested in the topic in more depth, I have some great colleagues there. Gavin Grift is somewhere in the audience, and Janelle Wills. I'd asked Janelle to stand up and wave, but you probably still couldn't see her anyway, that she's not that tall. But anyway, Janelle will be giving a session, I think 2 sessions from now, and a little more depth in my topic. The model I'm going to present really is a culmination of my life's work. And I sincerely mean that. So I usually tell people, if you don't like it, please don't tell me. I don't think I can take it. I'm going to start at a general theoretical level and then go into specifics. Now let me test something here. You should be seeing a PowerPoint. If you're not, someone should tell me, because I'm going to be flipping back and forth between the PowerPoint and the camera on me. So let me explain this strange slide. It's got 4 rectangles there with the terms knowledge, cognitive system, metacognitive system, and self-system. This actually represents the theory base from which we do all of our work, and let me explain it. I would assert a number of cognitive psychologists, although they use different terminology, use that model when they think about human behavior. More specifically, they say that you can think of what is in and what occurs in the human mind as existing in 4 different systems: the knowledge system, the cognitive system, the metacognitive, and the self system. I want to go through each one of these with the lens of to what extent do we pay attention to these different systems in our schooling. And I would assert that a comprehensive model of schooling that is aimed at the whole child, the whole student, would address all 4 of those. So let's start with the knowledge system. And that's the most obvious. Knowledge system contains that information that we learn over time, formally or informally, or in formal situations and not in formal situations. So just walking around the world as a child, an adolescent, and adult, we pick up knowledge. Of course, formal schooling is tasked with ensuring that students walk out of school with certain knowledge. I'll ask a rhetorical question, but you might answer in your head, but I'll answer it too. Do our countries in school spend a lot of time focusing on the knowledge system? And the answer is yes, yes we do, and rightfully so. However, related question, do we spend too much time focusing on the knowledge system? And I'm going to speak from the perspective of the United States. I'm pretty familiar with our system and know just enough about Australian education to get myself in trouble. So I'll just speak to U.S. education. We spend too much time in the knowledge system. There's a huge standards movement in the United States that's been going on for arguably 25 years. Every 5-10 years or so, there's a bit of an upheaval in that movement, but still the focus is on the knowledge students should know and skills they should be able to master or have mastered when they walk out of school. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and of course, we should identify standards in all the major subject areas and ensure that we're focusing on those and assessing those and giving students feedback. However, in the United States, here's what's happened. There's such a proliferation of the knowledge that gets identified in the standards that there's no time for anything else. In the U.S., some people point to 1989 as the real beginning of the standards movement in this country, and that's when all 50 states governors got together. They identified what we students should know and be able to do by the year 2000. Draft national standards were created. Everything looked like it was going fine until we stepped back and looked at those standards. And here's what we found. that if you were to try to teach all the standards in those documents without adding time to the school day or days to the school year, we would have to change school from K through 12 to K through 22. I'll say that again. K through 12 to K through 22. Obviously, that's a problem. And we still suffer for that here. Way too much content for teachers to teach and students to learn. It doesn't leave time for some of these other systems, which I think are as important, if not more important. Let's go to the cognitive system. You're all familiar with that term and that system. The cognitive system includes things like the ability to solve problems, make decisions, generate conclusions, generate claims and support those claims, analyze errors in your own thinking and the thinking of others. Are those important skills? Most people say absolutely, maybe as important, if not more important than the strict knowledge. Has education in the United States focused on the cognitive skills? Well, actually not until recently. We have a movement here in college and career readiness, and I'm happy to say that college and career readiness identifies specific cognitive skills that are to be taught directly and assessed, and a major part of our curriculum. So that's good news. Now, I actually think in Australia and New Zealand, you've done a much better job of this than we have. You have a much better track record in terms of focusing on the cognitive system than we do. So bravo to you. Let's look at the next system, the metacognitive system. Why, you all know that term, obviously. Metacognition technically means thinking about your own thinking. What are the skills in the metacognitive system? Well, very identifiable and very powerful. One set of skills deals with setting goals, personal goals, making plans to accomplish those goals, start to executing those plans, and making corrections along the way, adjusting as we need to. Are those important skills? Very important. You know, if we thought about it a little bit, or if you talked about your personal lives and how you got to the place where you are now, very successful place, obviously, you'd probably find that it was in no small part to your ability to set goals, make plans, execute those plans, monitor your progress, and make changes when necessary. Powerful set of skills. Do we teach those? Well, in the United States, we don't, not formally. You know, so for me, a system that was focused on the whole student, the whole child, would overtly teach metacognitive skills and give students the chance to set those long-term goals and make plans and work on those. Now, in addition to setting goals, making plans, etc., the metacognitive system contains what some people have called habits of mind or dispositions of mind. Many of you are familiar with that work. Art Costa, Bennett Kallick in the United States are best known here for that work, David Perkins from Harvard. And those dispositions are learnable traits, learnable stances, if you will, to difficult problems. They include things like living with ambiguity, realizing that if you can't immediately solve a problem, there's nothing wrong with that. Some problems have to be worked and looked at from different perspectives. Pushing ourselves to the limits of our perceived competence. Can those skills be taught? Absolutely. Can they be assessed? Absolutely. Now, the last system is probably the one I'm sure you've heard of, but maybe the one that is at least describable in terms of specifics. The self system contains our beliefs about the world in a hierarchy of needs or goals that some say we all operate from. Let me expand on that point. Many of you, all of you probably are familiar with this hierarchy of needs or goals. It's an adaptation of Abraham Maslow's. There are many other systems or hierarchies of goals and needs. This one is intuitive and it works just fine. These are systems of needs or levels of needs that we all have. Let me start from the bottom here. Physiology. That means physiological comfort. Do human beings operate from a need for physiological comfort? Well, obviously. I know you're beautiful weather there, so the temperature is probably just about right. But if the temperature all of a sudden dropped to freezing, you would do something about it. You put a coat on. If it increased to the point, where it was uncomfortable, you'd do something about that too. You turn on the fan. You take your coat off. Do schools address the physiological comfort of students? Yes, we do. In your country and in mine, I think we do a good job of that. Let's go up to the next level, safety. And that means physical safety. Do schools do a good job of addressing that? Yes, I think they do. I think we do in our country, and I know you do in your country. There are anomalies that happen in both countries. I live very close to a school called Columbine High School. That might ring a bell. 15 years ago, is it 15 years ago? Yes, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, actually. Two students came into Columbine High School and used automatic weapons and killed 12 people. 13 people, one teacher and 12 students. We have those anomalies that occur. Who can explain that? But in general, if you look at the statistics, the safety record in the United States and in Australia is actually pretty good. So we're doing a pretty good job at those two lowest levels, physiological comfort and safety. Let's kick it up a bit. Let's look at belonging and esteem within a community. Do humans operate from a need for belonging and esteem within a community? You bet, at all ages, at all levels. Now the question is, do we overtly address this in classes? And I think we do. Actually pretty directly for the most part, but those things we don't do directly, we do indirectly. Are we doing all we can do? Well, no, there are still students who slip through the cracks, obviously. There are still students in class who don't feel like they have a sense of belonging in that class. There are still students in class that don't feel like they have the esteem of their colleagues, their fellow students, and the teacher. And those students, given that this is a hierarchy of needs, turn off quite quickly. It's very hard to teach a student who doesn't feel like he or she belongs. They're not getting the evidence they do, and they don't feel like they have esteem with their peers and the teacher. They might be sitting there physically, but their minds have shut down. For the most part, though, we're aware of these areas, and at least we try. I'm not sure if that's the case for the next two levels, self-actualization and connection to something greater than self. Areas you're all familiar with. What's self-actualization? Well, just what it sounds like. Self-actualization occurs when we're working on things that we want to do. There are goals, and we're making progress on those. And we don't even have to accomplish the goals. Just the act of moving in the right direction motivates us. See, at these top two levels, we're really talking about motivation, true motivation on the part of students. Do schools formally address self-actualization? Well, I can say that we don't in this country. I've seen it in a few classes, but not system-wide. The way it would look if we actually address this is that students would be allowed at every level to identify personal goals and work on those goals. And they'd be supported in working on those goals. And many times those goals would have little or nothing to do about the curriculum, the knowledge system that we're supposed to teach students. And that's fine. Because the act of working on whatever they want to be, a rock star, I don't care what it is, a great football player, a great soccer player, football is soccer, you forgot about that, a great rugby player. Just the act of doing that will help them bring to bear cognitive skills and metacognitive skills. They will set their own goals. They'll work from the dispositions of pushing themselves to the limits of their perceived, knowledge and skill. That all automatically comes into play when they're working on something they really want to do. From the perspective of the whole child, this should be a formal part of schooling. Students should have chances to work on these things.